Witness.
Thank you, Judge. The state calls Paloma Rochin. Rochin.
Stand right here. You're going to, no, stand right here.
Sorry.
Raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or do you so affirm?
Here's the leader right there. Here's the issue right there. Here's the water. Nice to meet you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state and spell your name?
Paloma Rochin, Paloma Rochin.
So this is a big room, Paloma, so I'm going to ask you to probably pull that microphone towards you a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
All right, so I needed to speak into my microphone as well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Paloma?
I'm a junior at Northern Arizona University. I'm studying psychology. I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
What year were you in? Were you in at NAU in October of 2015?
I was a sophomore.
Where were you living at the time?
Mountain View.
Paloma, I'm going to ask you a few questions about the early morning hours of October 9th of 2015. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
Somewhere in the 1 o'clock, shortly after 1 o'clock time frame, a.m. on the 9th, do you recall what you were doing?
Yes, I was in my room with two of my roommates, Valerie and Kayla.
All right. And do you remember which floor or which room at Mountain View?
We were on the third floor, the fourth room in.
All right, so if you're looking at Mountain View, what, from the parking lot, it would be the fourth window in?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yes,
going to ask.
sorry.
Yeah, thanks. So in a minute, we'll bring up some photos for you to make reference to, okay?
Okay.
Was there something that happened in that rough time frame that captured your attention?
We could hear some commotion outside. We couldn't really hear exactly what was going on, but there was yelling. My roommate Valerie was the first one to notice it. She got up and went to the window. She told us that it looked like there were some guys down there that were about to fight, so me and Kayla both went up to the window as well, and we saw just a large group of guys, I'd say about 8 or 10 in that range. I couldn't be more specific than that. It looked pretty heated. There was yelling. I don't know exactly what was said. I recall someone being pushed. And then the rest of it just happened so fast. All the guys were kind of like circled around each other, it seemed like, and then the next thing I know, gunshots were going off.
All right, so was it just one group of guys you could see?
There was two groups. Like, it was obvious that there was two different groups of guys, but I couldn't have told, like, it was hard to tell everybody apart.
Okay. Can you tell us where they were located when you saw them?
It looked like they were between the pavement and the parking lot, like around that area.
Okay. So just to orient the jury to what you're talking about, you were looking out your window onto the Mountain View parking lot? Mm-hmm. And
yes.
There's a wide sidewalk or a driveway in between the building and the parking lot, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So where were they? Were they on the sidewalk, on the parking lot? Tell the jury.
I think that they were dispersed kind of between the sidewalk and the parking lot.
All right. So between however many guys, it was a fairly sizable area that they were dispersed over? I mean, maybe I'll ask you.
When I first looked out the window, the group of guys were more dispersed, and then as time progressed, it happened really fast. They were kind of gathered into one area. It would be easier to show you on a picture, but
okay.
When the gun went off, everybody was closer together.
All right. So I'll ask you those questions again when we bring up the photo.
Okay.
You said you saw some, was it one push or more than one push? What can you tell the jury about that?
I just saw one push. I saw somebody get shoved pretty hard, but they didn't fall to the ground.
I'm sorry, they did not fall to the
They
ground?
did not fall to the ground.
Okay, and what happened? So what led up to that?
I'm not quite sure. I think there was some shouting. Someone might have said something that another person didn't like, and then I just saw someone shove another person, and that's when the group was dispersed, they kind of came together into this one area.
All right. So just to be clear in terms of time frame, folks were dispersed kind of in the parking lot, the sidewalk or whatever, something was said. Did one or two people close distance on each other to push each other, or just, how can you describe that to the best of your ability?
Honestly, my attention, I don't really know, because I was focused, like I saw someone get pushed, and then after that, I know everybody like came together. I don't really know what exactly was happening, if people were trying to like stop it, and then just I remember the gun going off. It all just happened so fast.
Okay. So you said people were trying to stop it, like break it up?
Possibly. That's possibly why everybody started to come back to that one area.
All right. Do you remember any of the characteristics of the individuals involved in the one push?
Like what they were wearing, or?
Sure.
I believe that the person who did the pushing was wearing a white shirt. I don't remember anything else beyond that. And the person that got pushed was wearing a darker shirt. That's all I know, really.
That's what you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you see any punches thrown?
I did not.
Did you hear what was being said?
I didn't.
Did you hear, and then, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, so from the point of the push to the gunshots, you said it was really quick?
Yes.
Can you estimate for the jury how much time passed there?
Overall, I would say I wasn't looking out of the window for more than 2 minutes. I saw the push, everybody kind of came together, and then the gun went off.
Did you hear anything, any words about a gun, any yelling?
I didn't.
Okay. Did you see the person with the gun?
Yes.
When did you first see him?
When I said that everybody kind of came together, like all the guys were clustered in this one area, and I saw him walk up with the gun in his hand. I saw a flashlight under the gun, and then it went off. And I mean, at first I didn't know it was an actual gun or that somebody was actually hurt, so it took a little time for us to react. But I saw him shoot.
You said he walked up from where?
I don't know where, I just know that he walked up and he had the gun.
So you saw a person with a gun and a flashlight moving?
Yeah, I saw him take a step forward, and then, like, he had the gun. He could have been walking from somewhere else, but I didn't see where he was until he came up to the group of guys and had the gun.
Okay, and you didn't hear anything at that point, any command or anything?
No.
Was your window open or closed, do you recall?
It was open.
Where was the person with the gun and the flashlight immediately before the shooting?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Where were they? So we've described the area out in front of Mountain View. There's a sidewalk there. There's a parking lot. Where was that person with the gun?
He was in the parking lot.
Did you see any response from the people on the sidewalk when he walked up?
Yeah, I saw him hold up the gun had a flashlight, and I saw everybody that was in that group kind of take a step back, and then the gun went off.
Did you see anybody move towards him?
No, it's possible they could have, but as soon as they saw the gun, everybody took a step back. There was nobody charging him or anything, from my memory.
From that moment that you've just described where the gun was pointed and people took a step back, can you describe to the jury the period of time that passed before you heard shots?
Like since I looked out my window, or...
From the moment that that person pointed the gun and people reacted,
Oh, okay.
from the moment of the reaction, was there any time passage between that and the firing of the gun?
No, not really. I would say like seconds. He didn't wait.
Did you see anybody get shot?
I did. I saw Colin and I don't know the other victim's name that got shot in the hip or like the arm. I'm pretty sure I saw them both go down.
All right. So you just referred to one individual as Colin. Did you know who you were looking at that time?
No, I didn't. I didn't know any of the persons involved.
You didn't know them at all, like outside of this incident, you didn't know them? Or,
No, I didn't.
okay. And you didn't recognize anybody?
No.
Okay. So you saw both of those individuals get shot?
Yes.
Can you describe to the best of your ability what you saw?
I saw everybody, just that cluster of guys like I had mentioned before, and then I just saw him walk up with the gun, the flashlight on. He shot Colin in the chest first, and then the other victim. And then that's when my attention was a little distracted. I didn't really understand what had just happened.
Do you recall how many shots you heard?
I'd say between 3 and 4. I couldn't be sure exactly.
Do you recall the distances between people to the best of your ability? Between the shooter and the two people who were shot?
I'd say between like 5 to 10 feet. I couldn't be exact.
Do you know do you remember what whom we're now referring to as Colin was wearing?
I believe he was wearing just a white shirt and jeans.
So you mentioned that the person who was involved in the pushing was wearing a white shirt.
Yes.
Was it the same person?
I don't know.
Where was Colin standing, if you recall, when he was shot?
Excuse me. Between the parking lot and the walkway, there's like gravel or like rocks that separates them, and that's where he was.
Where was the other person who was shot when he was shot?
He was like to his right, but on the parking lot, I'm pretty sure.
Was it just, can you describe to the best of your ability the sequence of the shots? Was it immediate or?
It was immediate.
So it was one right after another?
Yes.
After the shooting, could you still see other people in that area, or do you recall?
I could see other people in the area. It took a little while for us to understand what happened, so that's when Valerie went to our RA, and I kept looking out the window, and that's when I saw somebody going to help Colin, and I don't know who he was or what he was wearing, but somebody started punching the guy that was trying to help Colin, and that's when the second round of shots went off, but I didn't see anybody get shot that time.
Okay. How much time passed in between the two sets of shots?
Maybe a few minutes, not very long. By the time Valerie had come back, the shots had already gone off, and she hadn't seen it.
So So you said previously that there were maybe 8 or 10 guys out there. We're talking about, was the shooter one of those guys?
Yes.
Okay. And then 2 people got shot. You talked about one person who went to Colin's aid, right? Did he come out of that group?
Yes.
And somebody else who went after the shooter?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not the shooter. Someone was punching whoever was trying to help Colin. I didn't see anybody approach the shooter.
Okay, and where was the shooter? Did he remain in the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. So you were taken some time to process what you were seeing, is that fair?
Yes.
Did you realize what was happening immediately?
No, I didn't. I had no idea. Never heard a gun go off. I thought maybe it was a BB gun. I don't know. I thought it was a joke at first. Like, I had no idea.
When you say you never heard a gun go off, you mean in the past? You're not familiar with the sound of a gun?
Yeah.
But that night you did hear it, right?
Yes.
When did you realize what was happening?
When they weren't getting up.
I think previously you said your attention was diverted at some point in time.
Yeah.
Well, when was that, roughly?
I'd say right after the first round of shots.
What was your attention diverted to, or why?
Mostly just my roommates all trying to figure out what had just happened.
All right, so in between the 2 sets of shots, your attention was diverted?
Yeah, and then there was girls coming into my room as well, so I don't really remember how many girls, but...
So you've talked about there was some punching. What else do you remember, if anything, in between the 2 sets of shots?
I mean, not much. Like I said, my attention was a little diverted. Valerie went to go get our RA. When I was looking out the window, I don't know, I was just staring because I was still kind of in shock, I guess. And I just saw somebody rushing to help Colin, and then I don't know what he was wearing. I don't know who punched him, but someone was trying to hit him, and then that's when the gun went off again.
Someone was trying to hit who? You don't know?
The victim that was shot in the neck, I believe, but I didn't see him actually get shot, but I believe that's who was helping him.
That's who was helping
Colin, sorry.
Somebody was trying to punch him?
Yes.
You don't remember what he was wearing?
I don't.
Did you see any, prior to the gun, did you see any?
And then maybe he got, yes, I saw a girl run from the entrance from Mountain View, that entrance, the one that's by Franklin. I saw her run to help the victim that got shot in the leg and the arm.
All right.
And then I didn't see anybody else helping Colin after the second round of shots.
Do you remember any of the characteristics of the shooter?
Brown hair. He seemed to be tall from my perspective, but then again, I'm on the 3rd floor, so that could have been skewed. I think he was wearing a black shirt and jeans. I think that's about as specific as I could be.
Fair to say that Colin ended up in that rock area you described?
Yes.
When he was shot? Did you continue to watch what was happening?
I did.
Did any other people kind of enter that scene besides the people you've already described?
Not that I can recall. I remember the shooter seemed panicked. kind of pacing back and forth. He was yelling for people to call the cops. At that point, my roommate Valerie had tried to get on the line, and she yelled through the window that to tell whoever was down there to hold down their wounds and that we were calling the cops, but people had already gotten through. And then the police showed up pretty soon after.
Okay. Did you see anybody push the shooter to the ground or attack the shooter?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever see the shooter approach anybody who was on the ground?
It's possible that he could have. I just know that he was pacing a lot, but I don't remember.
Did he still have the gun in his hand when he was pacing?
I believe so.
Was he saying anything besides call the cops?
That's the most distinct thing I heard him say. I didn't hear him say anything else.
Was that in between the two sets of shots or after the second set of shots?
After the second set of shots.
So you don't know what led up to the second set of shots? Did you see him take that second set of shots?
I did. I don't exactly know what provoked it. It could have been... Well, I don't think he was the one that was hitting whoever was trying to help Colin. I don't know who that was exactly. And then maybe he got scared or something spooked him. I don't know. And then the gun went off again.
Okay. Did you see that happen?
Yes.
And was the shooter on his feet or on the ground? Can you describe that?
He was on his feet. I just know that the gun went off again. I didn't really see where it went. I didn't know that it had hit anybody else.
Do you recall his posture when the gun went off the second time?
No.
Just that he was standing?
Just that he was standing.
Was the gun up? Was it down? Do you recall which way it was pointed?
Just like outwards.
Like straight?
Like
Can you
straight ahead.
demonstrate?
Yeah.
I'll ask you to stand up, if you will, if you recall, and demonstrate how the gun was pointed when it was fired the second time.
Okay. I would just say that it was just out like that. Is that okay?
Okay. I didn't hear you, so if you could you could sit, but if you could just repeat what you just said.
I just said that it was straightforward like that.
Okay, and so what you did is you stood up and you held your arms out in front of you
Yeah.
on a flat plane?
Yes.
And was he looking in the same direction that he was shooting?
I don't know.
And you think that it was the guy who got shot in the neck that was trying to help Colin?
Yes, but I couldn't be positive.
What made you think that, though?
Just because he was in close proximity to him.
Was he kneeling or standing near Colin?
I think he was kneeling.
Well, you didn't see him get shot, okay. So you didn't see anybody get shot in that second cluster of shooting?
No, I didn't.
Do you remember how many shots were in the second cluster? I'm sorry if I already asked you that.
I would say 2.
Did you ever see the shooter shooting in the air or pointing the gun up?
No, I didn't.
Was the flashlight on the whole time, and if you recall?
I distinctly remember the flashlight being on for the first round of shots. For the second round of shots, I couldn't be sure. But I don't believe it was on when he finally set the gun down, when the cops got there.
Okay. So let's talk about that. How long, in your estimation, did it take for the police to get there?
Probably about 5 minutes. They were there pretty fast.
From the first set of shooting?
Yes.
Did you see what you just mentioned, that the shooter put the gun down? Were the cops already there or on their way, or what can you tell the jury about that?
I think the cops were approaching him, and that's when he just put the gun on the ground and put his hands up.
Okay. And do Did you see him interacting with anybody else right before he put the gun down or anything like that?
No.
How many people were in your room? You said other girls came into your room.
Yeah, I would say maybe 5 other girls. After the second round of shots, my attention was also a little distracted. Girls kept trying to tell me to stay away from the window. So my vision was going back and forth between them, but I did see the second round of shots, and I did see him put the gun down when the police got there.
Okay. And throughout this entire event, you didn't see anybody else with any weapon?
No, I didn't.
All right, referencing again Exhibit 316. Paloma, can you see what's projected on the screen there, right?
Yes.
There should be a laser pointer on that desk in front of you.
Yeah.
Can you, using that laser pointer, can you point to which window was yours?
Yeah, it's that window right there.
Okay. And you said that you were looking down on that sidewalk from there, that parking lot?
Yes.
You can see that there's kind of a tree in that rough proximity, right?
Yes.
Was that obscuring your view or blocking your view in any way?
No, not at all.
Is that area well lit?
Yes.
When you first looked out, you said that people were dispersed. Mm-hmm. Let me know if you can't do it from this view and we'll choose another view, okay? But can you indicate with the laser pointer how people were dispersed when you first looked out?
I would say there was a large group of guys right there, like right around there, that parking, like that spot.
Uh-huh.
And then when I saw someone get shoved, that was over here. And then when they kind of came together, it was over here.
Okay. Now, let me, let's change the view. Yeah. So now you can see we're looking from a different angle, right?
Yes.
Looking at the same area. The sidewalk is pretty wide, right?
Yes.
So from the other angle, you were indicating that people were dispersed. Were they all on the sidewalk, or can you indicate from this view how people were dispersed when you first looked out?
I would say they were more towards Franklin. I wouldn't say that they were this close to the track.
Okay. Were they? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. It's hard to tell from this angle, honestly.
Right. Were they all on the sidewalk, though?
I couldn't be sure.
So
I would say they were dispersed between the sidewalk and the parking lot.
would you agree that they were then, at least there were people along the sidewalk, maybe most of the length of that wing of Mountain View?
Yes.
Okay. And then something was said and the groups came back together?
Yes.
Where was the shooter when you saw, so where was he when you first saw him?
Right there, about.
So it looked, I'm sorry, I wanted to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's it.
So it looked to me like you were indicating that parking space, that first parking space in the parking lot? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So that's when you first saw him?
Yes.
When you saw him take the first round of shots, where was he?
That's when I first saw him, when he took the first round of shots.
Okay, so he was standing in roughly that first parking space there?
Yes.
Where was he in between the two sets of shots?
Pacing around that area.
Okay. Where was he when he took the second set of shots?
I think he might have been a little bit closer to where Colin's body was. Say around right there.
Okay. And where was he after the second round of shots?
That's when he was pacing, like over here.
Did you see him put the gun down?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
I would say it's roughly around this area. I couldn't give you an exact estimate.
Okay, so he didn't move much throughout your observation. Is that fair to say?
He was in the same general area, yeah, but he was pacing a lot.
I may have a moment, Judge.
Sure.
Paloma, you said that Valerie called 911, right?
Yes.
Was that something that the two of you talked about or thought about?
Yeah, she thought about it first. She was more quick to realize the severity of the situation than I was. So when she got back from the RA's room, which didn't take much time at all, she called the cops, but she didn't get through. The line was busy.
Did you feel the need to call 911 before the shooting?
No.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Mr. McGowan?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, could you make out any faces of anyone out there when you were looking out your window?
Not distinctly, no.
You've since learned who a lot of these individuals were. Did you know any of these guys before that night?
No, I didn't.
Have you gotten to know any of them since?
No, I haven't.
And your roommate, that's Valerie Pabon?
Yes.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. We had heard from her earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys were both looking out the same window?
Yes.
Have it just a moment, yeah?
Sure.
No further questions.
Redirect.
Nothing. Thank you, Judge.
All right, I'll turn to members of our jury and see if you have any questions for Ms. Rochin. It does not appear that we do. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Rochin, thank you for your testimony. You're excused. Your next witness, please.
Thank you, Judge. The state calls Michelle Leonard.
You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or do you so affirm? I do. Thank you.
That's just you right there. And just speaking to them.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Michelle Erin Leonard, Michelleleonard.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Michelle?
Well, I'm from California, and I graduated from NAU last year in May, and I currently go to grad school at Concordia University.
I'm sorry.
I currently go to grad school at Concordia University in Irvine.
Nice. What are you studying?
School counseling.
Is that what you studied at NAU?
I studied psychology.
So then that would mean you were a senior in May of 2015?
2016.
Okay, so then a junior in a junior in October of 2015. What class were you in?
I graduated a year ago. So I graduated 2016. So I was a senior of October 2015.
Okay, a senior. And all right. I'm going to direct your attention to the early morning hours of October 9th of 2015, okay? Do you recall that time frame?
Yes.
You were not living at Mountain View at the time, is that correct?
Yes.
Where were you in the roughly 1 o'clock or shortly thereafter time frame, the very early morning hours of the 9th?
I was in my friend's dorm room in Mountain View on the 4th floor.
All right. Who was that friend?
Vanessa Chillington.
Do you know what time you arrived?
I believe it was around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Had you had anything to drink that night?
No.
What were you guys doing?
We went to go get food, and then we just came back, and we were just hanging out in her room.
All right, just talking?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you, was there ultimately something that caught your attention?
Yes.
And how long were you hanging out in your friend's room before that happened?
About 10 minutes.
Okay. What was it that caught your attention?
I heard arguing outside, and I just went to the window just to see what was going on.
All right. What did you hear?
Just yelling back and forth. That was it.
What did it seem like to you?
Thought they just weren't agreeing with something, and I was just curious with what it was.
Okay. Could you tell how many people it was that you were hearing?
It sounded like there was 2 people yelling at each other, and that was as many voices as I heard.
That's as many voices as you heard?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened next?
I walked to the window, and they were still yelling at each other, and then all of a sudden I heard gunshots go off. I heard 3, and I saw 3 guys go down to the floor, and then that was when I called 911, and I walked away from the window, and I was on the phone with the dispatcher, and then I heard one of the guys yelling to stand back and to not come and help the guys that were on the floor. So I walked back to the window to go see what was going on, and there were more witnesses there, and he was just yelling at them to stand back. And then that was when more of my friends came into the room, and that was when I walked away from the window again to see like if they were okay and what was going on. And then that was when I heard the cops come, and I heard them say, "Get down on your knees," and that was it.
All right, so that's a summary of everything that you saw and heard?
Yes.
So were you looking out the window for any period of time, or what period of time were you looking out the window before you heard the first set of shots?
That was when I heard them arguing. So I heard them arguing, and I walked to the window, and they were still arguing for like 30 seconds, and that was when I heard the gunshots.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. So you were looking out there for maybe 30 seconds before the gunshots?
Uh-huh.
And
Sorry.
can you...
Excuse me. Ms. Leonard, I can't have a or could you answer yes or no to all of the questions, please?
Yes, sorry.
All right, thank you.
So you think you were looking out for about 30 seconds before the gunshots. Can you describe to the jury what you saw during that 30-second period?
30 seconds before the gunshots, I just saw them bickering back and forth, arguing, and then I saw one of the guys turn his back, and then the other guy was saying that he wasn't done speaking to him, and so then he turned back around, and then that was when I heard the gunshots.
Okay. So you said them. I'm going to ask you to describe how many people you think you saw out there.
I want to say I saw about 4 or 5.
All right? And did it still seem like it was an argument between two people when you looked out?
I want to say it was between 2 people, and then his friends jumped in to help. Well, not to help, but to also join in the argument with them.
Okay. But it was an argument. Did you see any physical altercation?
No, I did not.
So right before you heard the shots, you saw somebody turn their back and then somebody else tried to continue the argument. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And do you remember the characteristics of either of those people?
The one that was holding the gun, he was lanky and tall, but it was too dark for me to see the face. And then I don't remember what the other gentleman looked like.
All right, so you think that the argument was happening with the person with the gun and another person?
Yes.
And the other person turned their back on the person with the gun?
Yes.
Where was this argument happening? So if you were looking out on that area, would you agree that it was a wide sidewalk between the building and a parking lot?
Yes.
And where was that interaction that you've just described happening?
That was right below the window that I was looking out. It was, so the window, I'm like right here, and this was happening in front of me.
And it was on the sidewalk or in the parking lot?
It was on the sidewalk. It was in between the building and the parking lot.
Did you see the gun before the shooting?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you hear anything about a gun before the shooting?
No.
Did you see any other weapons at all?
No.
And you said you thought you heard 3 shots.
Yes.
Did you understand what you were seeing at first?
No, I did not. I was in shock.
What happened next?
After the 3 gunshots, that was when I called 911 and I walked away from the window.
You didn't feel the need to call 911 before the gunshots?
No. No.
You walked away from the window and then you walked back towards the window?
Yes.
Did you look out the window?
Yes.
What did you see when you looked out?
I saw more people standing around, and I saw the guy with the gun telling them to step away, to not get near, because the people that were watching wanted to see if the people on the ground were okay, but he was yelling at them to step away.
Was that the only time you heard him? Up until that point, was that the first time you heard the shooter actually saying something?
Yes. Yes.
Did you notice anything else about the gun?
There was a light, I believe, that he had it was either on the gun or in his hand. It was like a flashlight, it looked like, possibly.
Okay. What happened? What was the next thing you saw happening out there?
After he was yelling?
Yes.
Well, after he was yelling, my more friends came into the room, and so that was when I walked away from the window again. And that was when I heard the cops come, and that was when I heard the cops tell him, or tell somebody to get on their knees. But I was away from the window at that time.
All right. You weren't looking out the window to see anybody running or going in any direction in that time frame?
I saw, when he was telling them to back away, I saw somebody did walk away the opposite direction, but I don't know where he went. I don't know who it was.
Which direction was that? Would that be towards Franklin Street?
Towards Mountain View. So he turned like up, he walked up the driveway.
Okay, away from, so kind
away
of
from.
towards the track that's over there? up that-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you remember any of the characteristics of the shooter?
I just remember that he was tall and that he was lanky, but it was just too dark outside for me to see his face.
You said it was dark. Was it lit well enough for you to see what you've described, though?
Yes, yes.
So you only observed one set of shots. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you saw that actually happen. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you see the posture of the shooter?
He seemed pretty confident in what he was doing. It was kind of like he knew that he was going to,
I'll stop you right there.
sorry.
Sustained.
But in terms of his posture, like how his body was, did you see how he was holding himself? Was he standing on the ground? Was he?
Oh, he was standing with
Okay.
his shoulders back. And
All right. Do you recall well enough to demonstrate for the jury what you saw in terms of how he was holding himself, how he was holding the gun?
no, I do not.
Okay. Did you see anybody move towards him right before the shots were fired?
No.
Besides him telling people to stay away from the people who were on the ground, did you hear any other yelling or other statements or comments?
No.
Did you see anybody, after that set of shots that you heard, did you see anybody approach the shooter or interact with him physically, or?
No, I did not.
But that's when you were calling 911?
Yes.
If I may have a moment, Judge. Just one more question. Michelle, did you hear anybody say anything about "I'll kill you" or "I'm going to kill you" or the word "kill"?
No.
Nothing further at this time, Judge?
All right. Mr. McCown.
You can if you want. Yeah, let's put it up there. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
This is Exhibit 316. Do you recognize what this is showing?
Yes.
What are we looking at here?
You're looking at Mountain View in the parking lot.
And you have a laser pointer there. Do you see it?
Yes.
Can you point out what window you were looking out of?
I want to say it was this one right there.
Okay. And was the window open when you were looking out of it?
Yes.
Now, you heard yelling and arguing out there, right?
Yes.
Were you able to make out every single word that anyone said?
No.
So some things you heard, some things were just words, but you couldn't make out what was said.
Yes.
If you could use your pointer and point out where you saw this group of guys arguing.
I saw them right here arguing.
Now, they weren't standing on the bush, right?
No, they were on the driveway.
And when you say driveway, are you referring to, you're not referring to the parking lot, you're referring to in between Mountain View and the bush?
Yes.
Okay. Some people have been referring to that as a sidewalk, but it's pretty wide, right?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so that's where you saw everyone standing?
Yes.
You see that, that black barrier?
Yes.
Now, that wasn't there at the time, right?
No.
Did you see any of the group standing over in front of that barrier?
No, but I do remember they were moving as they were arguing, but no.
Okay, so when you first saw them, they were where you pointed out. Could you point to that area again?
Yes.
And then you saw them as a group sort of move?
They were moving, yeah, as they were arguing.
And what direction did they move?
They were moving up.
Okay.
They're moving this way.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Thank you, Judge. Just a couple of questions. So, just to be clear, in terms of which window it was, you didn't live there, is that fair?
Yes.
And also, do you recall whether the window was open or shut?
It was open.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
All right, I'll turn to members of our jury and see if they have any questions for this witness. Does not appear that we do. Can Ms. Leonard be excused? Excuse me, can Ms. Leonard, excuse me, can Ms. Leonard be excused?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Leonard. Appreciate your testimony. All right, folks, let's take our second mid-morning recess. 10 minutes, please.
Your Honor, can we approach
Sure.